Welcome to TradeTheMBI's ongoing series on formatting and uploading indicators to TradeStation. In step 3, we will add some indicators to subgraphs on our chart. Now that we've completed our trend model, our extreme histogram, and whether you choose to have this in a subgraph is easily accomplished by merely placing a right click over one of the extreme histogram lines, selecting format, and all you would do would be to change your subgraph, which would then convert it to its own window. Now, in utilizing that same technique, we can restore it back to by simply putting a 1 value there, clicking OK, and it will restore it. We want to add a couple of new indicators in this particular case, so we're going to insert indicators, and in this case we're going to go ahead and install the shakeout indicator. Now, when we come to this, we will have our usual indication under scaling, and we will click no axis. In this case, we're going to let it go into subgraph 2, which will be just below where price is. Let's go ahead and click OK, and we'll see that not exactly what we're looking for from the shakeout indicator, because we know that the shakeout indicator has an histogram as its relationship reader. So we'll go to the white line, and we literally click the white line. Now, by clicking the white line, at least when we go to Style, the histo will be highlighted. If you had clicked any of the other colored lines, you would have had them show up as the lead. But in this case, we want to make sure we have histo. We want to select histogram. The weight of the histogram you can select. Here is the minimal version of it. We'll select OK. And that's a standardized version. If we wanted to change how wide that white reading was, we can go back to the histogram. We can just click a little bit thicker and select OK, and you can see that the lines become thicker, and that just becomes a preference at this particular point. If we slide over here to the right margin, we can right click that, and we begin to see the word shakeout, and we can click that, and the values for the various readings will pop up in the right margin. That's also an added convenience for just being able to see the values quickly. They're also displayed up here at the top, and the white being the histogram as well as the various lines that are rolling around through it. Further, if we want to add an additional indicator, in this particular case, we can add the expanded ratio histogram, which happens to be above, and that is the reason that they have the underscore. It moves them to the top of the indicator Show Me or Paint Bar Studies. It makes it just a little convenient for us to add our indicators to it. So in this particular case, we're going to go ahead and just click OK for the expanded ratio histogram, and you'll notice that, it popped up in price and is shrinking everything. So what we want to do is merely right click any line on it, and in this case we'll start with scaling, and we'll click no axis. In this case, we know that number 2 is our shakeout, so we'll go to number 3 and select OK, and that's going to move it now into our correct location. But you'll notice something is interesting here. It doesn't have the orange line, and that's because orange is not a default category for TradeStation as far as the easy language. So we're just going to go to this dark blue line, which is the one that should be colored orange, and we go to Format. We go to color. Now, if you chose a different color other than orange, that would be fine. But you can see orange is not even listed here. So we have to go to Other, and we can select orange this direction. And what I do is I typically scale it a little bit darker since we have a black chart, and I add it to our custom colors. And so it appears right there, and we just select OK, and now it's highlighted right there. So when we select OK at the bottom of this, we will now have our expanded ratio histogram with the correct colors. And then by scrolling as well, same situation, right clicking, checking that top one, the readings also show up on the side. So now that we have 2 of the 3, there's one additional histogram I'd like to show under this category. So we'll go back to Insert Analysis Techniques, and in this case we're going to go to our up-down powered continuous, and the reason being is that this one has also a histogram associated with it. So into scaling, we're going to go back to our no axis, and in this case I'm going to select 15 because I'm always going to want it to be at the bottom. But now, before we move on, we're just going to go to Style, and so it has the Bull Power version. It's going to be a histogram, and I want it a little bit thicker so that we can see it right there. And then when I go to the Bear Power, also I want that one to be even thicker as well, because the two relate to one another on top of each other. And so if I select OK after having done that, we can see that we've got pretty traditional look, and again we right click over at the side, the values then show up there. But this is one that happens to have inputs that are adjustable. And so if we go back to our format, we go to inputs. One of the recommended inputs that we have for smaller time frames is a 25, 19, 9. And we select OK, and you can see that those numbers then change and appear up in the window so that you can see it. And variability with the various indicators will be in additional videos. This was merely to give you an idea how to create the subgraphs. Now, each of these subgraphs can be moved higher and lower merely by highlighting on top of the detail for adjustment purposes. And this gives you a pretty good idea of how to insert any indicator, make basic adjustments with them, as well as utilize them in different spaces, because you can literally then just drag and move an indicator below, above, and rearrange your coordination. As always, continue to look for ongoing series on the remainder of the indicators.